You can't do that anymore. So, you know, there'll be like 5 different pins for the same location, of which at least 4 of them are in the wrong place.
All right, guys. It's 6:02, Tuesday, June 23rd, 2015. It's time for Bitcoin Filter. We do this every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. sharp, rain or shine. Even if the monkeys across the street have gotten their hands on a chainsaw, we still have this meeting. So bear with us tonight, folks. We've got a kind of a noisy situation going on. Well, maybe we'll try to speak up. We've got a great show in store for you tonight. We got a little bit of local news. Turns out July is a big month here in Ubud for Bitcoin. But we'll get to that. We're going to talk about the price. Of course, we always talk about the price. And we're going to go around the world again. Back to Greece. Greece is in the news yet again. It's kind of like the little boy that cried wolf. But we're still going to go there. We're also going to go to Russia. Russia's beautiful this time of year in June. Much better than the winter. And we're going to go to Indonesia. Even though we're already in Indonesia, we're going to go to Indonesia. Then we're going to continue our altcoin series. Rick Shreves is going to talk about BitShares, which is interesting technology and interesting politics around BitShares, but we'll talk about that. We're also going to talk about a new project here locally, a co-working currency. Basically a co-working complementary currency that will probably launch here and maybe will work in other co-working locations around the world. That's very exciting. Of course, we'll get to the news like always as well. So let's kick things off here. Let me share my screen. All right. We're coming to you live from Hubud. They're nice enough to provide the cool conference room. This is the meat locker. This place is freezing. It's very comfortable and nice place that they provide for us every week to have this meeting. If you find yourself in Bali on a Tuesday, you should come find us and hang out with us for an hour. We do this every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Local time. So, but if you can't join us in person, hold on a sec here, guys. If you can't join us in person, we have this Facebook group where we have a virtual conversation. You can post stories here. This one was just posted a few minutes ago by Rick. But everybody can chime in here, and then when we get together in person, we can talk about these things. And that's kind of what we're gonna do tonight. So check out the Facebook group. We're also on Twitter. We've got a conversation going here, hashtag Bitcoins in Bali. And I've got a tweet all teed up for us here. Let the world know that we're meeting now and that they can watch live at that link. And so yeah, you can find us on Twitter, hashtag Bitcoins in Bali, if that's your preferred method. So let's talk a little bit about some local news here, guys. In July, it's Bitcoin month here in Ubud. Hubud, the co-working space where we're meeting right now, has agreed to a.
Conversation going here, hashtag Bitcoin.
Hold on, guys. I know how to fix this.
I've got a tweet
like a
all
time
teed up for us here. Let the world know that we're.
I thought this was the Back to the Future episode. It's like the Back to the Past.
Hold on a second, guys. Whoa.
And so yeah, you can find us on Twitter, hashtag Bitcoins in Bali.
Let's see if I can.
Past is
Let's
almost
talk a
caught
little
up.
bit about some local news here,
Let's see if I
guys.
can.
In July, it's Bitcoin month here in Ubud. Hubud, the co-working space where we're meeting right now, has agreed to a.
It sounds like you have a few of them going.
Hold on, guys. I know how to
Yeah,
fix it.
this is called the dimensional shift.
I think I fixed it.
Kind of like Interstellar.
Did I mention this is an amateur show? Where's my producer? You're fired. Okay, no more echo. I hope. Okay, so again, July is Bitcoin month here at Hubud, and Hubud is going to offer 10% discounts on everything in the month of July, as long as you pay with Bitcoin. So I think that's pretty cool. You know, a membership here, if you get the unlimited membership, it can be over $200. So that's $20. That's pretty good. That would be worth it for me to learn, like, how do I do this Bitcoin thing? And so hopefully that there will be some people that will take an interest and get on board, get involved. That's the idea. So in order to support that, though, we're going to have Bitcoin 101 every week. I'm thinking on Wednesday nights, but I'm still trying to nail that down schedule-wise. But basically, we want, if someone says, oh, I do want to save 10%, but they have no idea what Bitcoin is, then within a week we can get them all set up. So every week we'll have a Bitcoin 101 class, and you can, we don't have it scheduled yet, but you can learn about it by going to bitcoinsinbali.org. And after the show tonight, we are going to go to one of the local businesses that accepts Bitcoin for dinner. The Seeds of Life now accepts Bitcoin as payment. So hope you guys brought your Bitcoin wallets, and hope you mind eating not cooked food, because all the food there is raw, but it's delicious. They even do lasagna, like warm lasagna that's actually raw food, and a bunch of other good stuff. So we're gonna go there. We'll see you there around 7:30 tonight after the show. All right, time to talk about price. It's been a little bit boring for the last 24 hours, but we're at $247.11 per Bitcoin. And you know, it made me think about the price. You know, it's, gosh, you know, back in 2013 we hit this spike, and boy, we're way down in the doldrums here. And oh, wait a second, I've made some kind of a error here. Let's see. Wait. Let me show you something here. This is what the world looked like in 2011, right? So you could almost map this whole thing onto 2013, right?
Yeah.
And this is the world in 2011. It kind of looks like the world today, right? We had this spike, and now we're like, who knows what's going to happen with the price? But if I expand out, that little bump turns into absolutely nothing. And now we've got the same thing going on here, but exponentially more, right? So I guess, you know, this also happened back in this neck of the woods.
Yeah.
And then we've done it again. So I'm just waiting for the next heartbeat here. That takes us up over maybe $2,000 per Bitcoin. Yeah, keep your fingers crossed. See what happens. We're in Indonesia, so the Indonesian price per Bitcoin is 3,250,000 Indonesian rupiah for Bitcoin. Yeah, usually get Bitcoins for about 2 or 3% less than market value, especially when Bitcoins are on the move. How's that chainsaw going out there, Frank? Are they almost done? We're going to have to send somebody out after those guys. All right, Bitcoin. This is the total number of Bitcoin in existence. I bring this number up every week, and we'll just do a little refresh here. There's no other currency on planet Earth, unless it's another cryptocurrency, where we actually know the exact number of Bitcoins, or the exact number of currency units that exist. You know what's interesting about this is, you know, Bitcoin was invented back in 2008, right, during the global financial crisis. And I believe that they built Bitcoin because the human race has forgotten how to count. Yes, we have forgotten as a species how to count, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In the financial world, it actually equals 5.3, right? And then next year it's 5.6, et cetera, et cetera. And it's an interesting social experiment, Bitcoin, that instead of the value of things changing in an arbitrary way based on money and the inflation of money, we're finding our ability to count once again as a human species. And this is a case in point. Of course, if you compare that to the Fed's U.S. dollars, you know, we've got over 4 trillion U.S. dollars, but you know, you don't know from day to day what's going to happen. Back in 2008, they began what's called quantitative easing, and they have quadrupled the money supply. If you go back to Bitcoin, this is the graph for Bitcoin growth. It's much more stable than what you've got here. So very interesting distinction. The human race is learning how to count once again, slowly but surely. All right, so with that, we're going to move to Mr. Rick Shreves. We're going to continue our altcoin discussion with a treatment of BitShares. Take it away, Rick.
Thanks, Gary. You know, this is one of those things that, you know, I love when I get into a situation where I have to explain a technology that I actually don't understand in depth. So I'm just going to come right out up front and say that. There's this wonderful discussion on the BitShares wiki called "Explain It to Me Like I'm a 5-Year-Old," and it made me feel like I was 2. Okay, it's in a nutshell. I mean, conceptually, if you were here for the NXT discussion, this is an alien territory. It is a decentralized exchange service. It's a platform essentially that gives you a decentralized ledger that allows you to create fungible digital assets that are pegged against real-world currencies or gold or other values. So it's a platform for creating and monetizing assets and trading those assets. What they've done, which is kind of different, is they've tried to eliminate counterparty risk by making it possible for people to hold this asset and profit from the interest on it by holding it. They do this in a couple of different ways, the biggest one being that if you short BitShares, you actually have to have twice the value of the short position in the system already. And then the system automatically liquidates your position if it falls to 1.5 times the original value. So they do a few things that are interesting in that regard to kind of police the system to reduce counterparty risk. It isn't really a traditional digital currency in that sense. It's kind of like Ripple in the sense that there's a distributed trust network that uses a centralized currency as a facilitating intermediary currency. That's really the way BitShares works. Where this becomes massively confusing is that this used to be BitShares X. They rebranded it in February, and then just a couple of weeks ago, they said, you know, the whole thing's screwed up. We're binning the whole thing, and we're going to launch BitShares 2.0. And literally, there's a blog post on this website that says what we learned from BitShares 1.0 or 0.01, whatever they call it. And it's this big, long list, and really some of it is whole thing was screwed up. We're starting over from scratch, okay? Despite this, the market cap and valuation of BitShares actually took a bump after this announcement. So clearly the stakeholders said, oh, thank God, this is an improvement. They're promising some very interesting things. One of the biggest being that they are using a delegated proof of work system, or proof of stake system, not proof of work. And basically transactions are validated on the blockchain by delegates who are nominated by votes of holders of BitShares. So you have to have enough votes to be nominated as a delegate before you're allowed to confirm transactions. What this does is it allows them to confirm transactions in about 5 seconds. So your transaction speed goes way the heck up. Also with BitShares 2.0, they've changed the algorithms that are used for validating transactions. And some blog posts indicate that they've actually benchmarked phenomenal transaction volumes, like 6 million transactions a minute. Yeah. But they're advertising on their website only 100, and that's just with CPU processing. I don't know if you saw it, there was a post I put up on Bitcoins in Bali about a possible solution to the whole blockchain size and transaction confirmation speed issue, which was being called RAM change, which shifted part of the transaction validation process into RAM instead of writing back and forth to the database, which slowed things down massively. As I read through the BitShares documentation for BitShares 2.0, it sounds very, very similar to what BitShares 2.0, which is promising to do. So it really changes the way that that whole transaction works on the technology side of things. You can see how they're advertising it: industrial grade financial smart contracts platform. You know, it isn't even positioned as a digital currency. It is an asset exchange in the same sense that NXT is an asset exchange, and that's really what it's all about. Yeah, here we go. They're advertising over 100,000 transactions per second with their new system. However, the biggie is, new system hasn't been launched yet. No one is actually saying when the new system will be launched, but there's speculation on the forums that it could be August or September. One of the other things that makes this whole thing terribly confusing for those of us who might be thinking about holding BitShares is the entire dev team has now gone off and formed a angel venture capital funded company called Cryptonomics, which is now licensing the blockchain technology back to BitShares. So while they say they're an open source company, and truly the source is open, it's actually restricted by terms of use and licenses, and they're trying to monetize it in that fashion. And if you remember a while back when we first started looking at BitShares X, a lot of the transaction volume for BitShares X was coming out of the Chinese exchanges. In fact, the vast majority of it. Well, a bit of digging around from what I've seen is it appears that the venture capital behind Cryptonomics is also Chinese. And so when you get into a situation where transactions are verified by delegates who are voted on by stakeholders in an organization that's now backed by a company which is now backed by angel investors, you got to start wondering a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that. So everybody's waiting to see what happens when BitShares 2.0 comes out. They certainly are promising a massively improved technology solution. Is the market going to buy it, or is NXT going to eat their lunch? We shall see.
Well, thanks, Rick. That's cool. Well, it's always interesting to me how Bitcoin was this kind of autonomous. You just set it loose in the wild, and it happens. And there's this constant pressure to go back to the old banking mechanisms, legal entities and political entities that control the decision making within these things, and in order to I don't know, make something appealing to the market. And it almost runs counter to the whole ethos of what Bitcoin was in the first place.
Well, there was a point in time when back in April when it had become so uneconomical to confirm transactions for BitShares that the development team ceased being paid. And right about that time, shortly after that time, suddenly there came this announcement that, oh, we're actually going to form a corporation now, and we're seeking angel investors, and we're going to rewrite the whole thing as BitShares 2.0. So you have to wonder if the system simply ceased to become viable, and this is another bite at the apple, as it were. One other thing you should be aware of if you have any BitShares X knowledge, the things that used to be called bit assets are no longer called bit assets. They've also rebranded that. They're now called smart coins. So big changes in terminology, guaranteed to confuse everyone in the market. We'll see if they weather this storm.
Sorry.
I think they're down 4.25% on your review, Rick.
Yeah.
I didn't say anything bad about them. I don't understand it well enough to slam them.
Any questions on that, guys? It's just cool that there's this ecosystem of people just trying new things. I mean, it's kind of the wild, wild west, but just a ton of innovation taking place. And I don't know, it's slowly but surely we're learning about all this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Oh, by the way, there was an interview with the founder of BitShares on Let's Talk Bitcoin. I just put a link here. We'll put that in the show notes. The guy's name is Daniel Larimer, and he explains, well, in more detail, a lot of the things that Rick just mentioned. So check that out. All right, moving on. Are you guys ready to go around the world?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's talk about Greece. Now, since we last met, and I'll just remind you that when we last met, Greece had already missed one payment, and it was becoming more and more obvious that maybe they were planning on not making further payments. There are actually some clauses in the agreements they have with the Troika that they can, instead of, if they miss a payment within a month, they can roll up all their payments and then pay on the last day of the month. So mark your calendars for June 30th. That's coming. And as that date approaches, there's lots and lots of soap opera type activity going on, including who this guy is. That's Vladimir Putin. But this is Alex Tsipras, the new president of Greece, and he recently visited Russia in a very public, basically, I don't know, move to illustrate that there are more powers on planet Earth that Greece can appeal to besides the EU and the IMF.
Yes.
Now, Russia has their own problems these days with the low price of oil. And the low price of oil is a part of a larger geopolitical currency war, if you will, that's going on right now. But the world is really turning into a very strange place where East and West are kind of tussling and mixing it up a little bit. And for me, my analysis is that it just goes to show how desperate the folks in Greece are, right? That they would kind of, I mean, this is basically like kind of like a veiled threat, really. It's like, well, okay, we're having all these problems with the EU. I think I'll just go take a trip to Russia and meet with Vladimir Putin and see how that changes the negotiations. Well, a lot of the people that I read think that it was just for show, but take a look at the article and let me know what you think on Bitcoins in Bali. Fascinating, really. And this is the latest news I could find from today. There were rumors that maybe they were going to have a bank holiday on Monday of this week, and the EU approached the commercial banks in Greece and said, "Don't worry, we'll cover you for the cash that you need in the short term." So in the meantime, everybody in Greece is going to the ATMs and getting as much money out as they can and setting their money elsewhere. What they call capital flight. And these bank guarantees are designed to instill confidence in the population, at least on the short term, because you don't want people going to the ATM and the ATM doesn't work, or going to the bank and the bank doesn't work, because that causes panic and it becomes what's called a run on the bank. It can be a self-fulfilling prophecy. This, to my thinking, shows a little bit of maybe a little bit of weakness. Maybe that trip to Russia did some good. But we still don't know what's actually going to happen. This is the latest from today. Greece offers new proposals to avert default. Creditors see hope. And we've seen this over and over and over again. I'm actually getting I feel like you guys are going to stop trusting me because I keep putting these headlines in front of you. I mean, it's one day it's the world's going to end, and the next day we've got a deal. But I think it's worth noting that Greece will not pay its debts, period.
Yes.
That will not happen. It's just not possible. Like, it's mathematically impossible. It would take some sort of miracle and some sort of 20-year plan that would defy all of what we've seen throughout history. It's simply not going to happen. And all of this is, I guess, some sort of controlled chaos, some sort of effort to have some kind of landing that doesn't involve bloodshed or chaos in the streets. Yes, Greece will not pay its debts, and something will happen based on that reality. Well, I guess we'll see what happens, but keep your eyes peeled on Greece. All right, moving on to Indonesia. This is the guy across the street that's got the chainsaw. I wish he'd take a break and read the paper again.
I think we just did.
Yes, the Bank of Indonesia has issued another warning that they're not. They've come out and said that Bitcoin might break certain laws in Indonesia, but that Bitcoin is not named explicitly in any Indonesian legislation, so it's just been a bit of guidance. And they've said in the past that if you're using Bitcoin, you should use it at your own risk, right? So they've issued these warnings to the population, and essentially they're just saying it again. And I think that they're not really saying anything new, but they are saying it again, and it's I think that it's based on some problems that Indonesia is happening on the world markets. Take a look at the Indonesian rupiah versus the dollar for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
It's gone from 9,000 rupiah per $1 to over 13,000 rupiah for $1, and this reflects
Look at the last
a
year.
problem that the central bank has. Yeah, in the last year we've seen quite a slope here, quite a devaluation of the rupiah versus the world's reserve currency, which is the US dollar, and this. The pressure here is for Indonesia to maintain their balance of trade, right? Because they've got to, nobody cares about the exchange rate if you make all your money in rupiah and you spend all your money in rupiah. You don't care what the dollar exchange rate is. I mean, everybody in this room is more sensitive to it. But if you're a little restaurant owner, an Indonesian restaurant owner, and all your clientele earn rupiah and you spend rupiah to pay all your suppliers and employees, you don't really care. But the Bank of Indonesia plays on the international stage, and they've got to try and maintain a healthy balance of trade and not send their currency into hyperinflation on the world market. And they're having difficulty doing this. Okay, and so Bitcoin regulation aside, they've also come out and said that all domestic transactions need to take place in rupiah. So if you guys are bopping around town and you see a massage, it's $25 US. Beginning July 1st, that's not legal to do, according to the Bank of Indonesia.
And by the same token, no pun intended, wouldn't it also be illegal to charge in Bitcoin?
Well, Bitcoin is not a currency, so you've got at least a temporary loophole for the moment that that Bitcoin is not a foreign currency, at least nominally, by name in Indonesian law, but the spirit of the law.
It isn't that it forbids the use of other currencies; it mandates the use of the IDR.
Right.
There's a difference.
Yes. Well, true. I mean, you find yourself in a situation where you look for the wiggle room, right? Like a credit card, for example. When you swipe a credit card, I mean, is the credit card a currency? Because you're not actually paying that money at that moment. You're relying on Visa and MasterCard to pay later. So what's the money in that sense? In that instance, it's a payment mechanism, right? You're always denominating things in rupiah, but Visa MasterCard has extended credit to the person during the time, for a period of time. You could make the case that that's also not a rupiah transaction, and you could also say that Bitcoin could play the same role. But I mean, the days are numbered for that kind of argument. The reason for the rule is because of the poor balance of trade. The Bank of Indonesia is saying if large deals, and I think that's who they're going after. I don't think they're going to go after the local yoga shop, but we'll see. It's not unprecedented. But what they're actually going after is a huge development project. Like let's say they're building a huge hotel in Seminyak, and they do the whole thing in dollars because some of their suppliers are overseas, and they don't want to, they want to make sure that they can pay their bills that are denominated in dollars or Australian dollars or something else. And if that whole hotel is built with money outside of the Indonesian rupiah, then that reduces the demand for Indonesian rupiah, and that means that the balance of trade doesn't get fixed. So, yes.
So one thing I saw in one business, particularly in Ubud, that they do some part in US dollar, they actually start getting out of the rupiah, so charging more US dollars, and then on the other side of the business, keeping rupiah and cash.
Right. Yeah, they'll actually, the price tag will be in dollars, but you show up and they'll look it up on the spot, and then you pay in rupiah. That's technically against the rules.
Yeah.
So what are the penalties, right? If you
So high.
well, turns out that if you refuse to accept rupiah as payment, you can go to jail. So there's that. And
Sorry, can we back up a sec? I disagree with your interpretation of that. Pricing it in US dollars is fine. It's transacting in rupiah that's required.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
If someone, if I have a business in Indonesia and someone says, hey, I want to pay you in rupiah, and say, no, I don't take rupiah, you have to pay in dollars, that's illegal. Now, presumably, you take payment before they haul you off to jail. I don't, but that is the worst offense, that you're in Indonesia but you refuse to accept rupiah as payment. Now, if you price something in dollars, you can be fined up to 1% of that transaction value. So
I haven't seen that. I've only seen the transactions.
yeah.
You can't quote.
Let's see here.
The first paragraph.
Requirement to state prices in IDR.
Right. So if you
It
But
also
that,
prohibits quotes in foreign
that
currency.
doesn't mean you can't quote prices in two currencies.
Yeah. I think what they're trying to discourage is like a big. Well, I've seen billboards in Ubud that says this villa is for sale for $250,000 US, right? And presumably, if that transaction takes place, they can show up after the fact and take.
Right here, the requirement applies not to just to cash transactions, but also to non-cash transactions, such as electronic. You just scrolled off.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Such as electronic transfers and credit card payments.
Yeah. So really interesting developments. You can see how it manifests in the Bitcoin announcement, and it also corresponds with this this USD announcement. Really, this is aimed at US dollar denominated business happening in Indonesia. So fascinating. I've also got a link to this Q1 report on the balance of payments if you want to bore yourself to tears. I'll leave a link to that in the show notes.
Why is the devaluation a problem for Indonesia?
Why is the devaluation a problem? Well,
Sometimes it's a good thing, right?
well, you've got a poor, in my opinion, if you're the Bank of Indonesia, you've got you don't have any good options. You can devalue your currency, which makes your exports more attractive to the rest of the world. So let's say that, here we're in Bali, tourism is big. If all of a sudden a Bali vacation is twice as expensive, then the Bank of Indonesia has the incentive to devalue the currency. But when they do that and their population doesn't realize what's going on, or if you're a local warung owner and you don't change the prices on your menu, then you kind of get screwed. So that's the bargain they're making. They're like, well, we don't want to kill tourism, so let's devalue the currency, but we don't want to screw over our population, so those two things are at odds. They've also got interest rates at their disposal to mess with as well. Yeah, that's another conversation. But good question. Let's see how we do on time. Okay, news item that wasn't up on Bitcoins in Bali yet, but I wanted to share it with you. Do you guys know who this guy is, Eric Voorhees? He's the founder of Coinapult, and he did Satoshi Dice, one of the first online Bitcoin gambling sites that he ended up selling for $11 million worth of Bitcoin. He's a really interesting guy, very outspoken, very articulate. He's an American, but he has relocated to Panama. A little bit of regulatory arbitrage going on there. And he has, he's very outspoken about this concept of regulation, Bitcoin regulation. And this is an open letter on Zapchain to basically talking about the Bit license. Now, we've talked about the Bit license in the past. It's New York, basically the state of New York's regulations about Bitcoin, and it requires all kinds of things. Like you've got to have, you've got to collect information about your users, you've got to have compliance officers, you've got to have audit procedures. It's a very expensive proposition. It becomes a big barrier to entry to Bitcoin companies. And let me see, there was a, yeah. Here's a good quote from Eric. The part of the Bit license we had the most problem with was its requirement to extract personal private information from our customers. This information is totally unnecessary to the transaction itself, and by collecting it, we not only burden our users but endanger them, because that information would then be centralized in our database and then various government databases and would become a target for hackers and identity theft. Did you guys recently see that the US government was hacked? The U.S. government, their HR department, and the U.S. government employs millions of people, including top secret CIA type people, etc. So their employee database was hacked. They say they think it's China, but who knows what reality is. The upshot, though, is that when you have central databases, they get hacked. And so he's saying, he doesn't want to collect customer information. He sees that as a disservice to his users. And really, the BitLicense would like to deputize every Bitcoin company out there to collect information about its users so that it can look at that information at will when they want to. Now, what's interesting about, have you guys heard about this company, Shapeshift.io? Well, let me show you what happens when you try to go there. I set up my VPN to be in New York City, so my browser thinks it's in New York City, and if I go to Shapeshift.io, it sends me to this pleaseprotectconsumers.org. And this is censored jurisdiction. So this is like if you're in New York City and you want to use Eric Voorhees's company, you come to this pleaseprotectconsumers.org, and it's a whole basically political diatribe about why this is a bad thing for everybody, which is pretty interesting.
The first line says you can't go to the site because they won't take your information.
Yeah.
It's got something. Surely the British want to do amendments, doesn't it?
It says North Korea and state of New York. Like if you scroll down.
There are amendments to free speech. So little guns and stuff. It's a breach of something.
I don't know. But what's interesting about his service is he doesn't have any login. How many logins do you guys keep track of?
Yeah.
More than one?
Yeah.
Probably more than 100? I've got like a little password database for all the places where I have to log in. Well, this Shapeshift.io requires no login. You just go to the website, you give it, like you can trade Bitcoins for BitShares, for example, I think. I don't know if BitShares is supported, but Bitcoin and Dash, which is another currency that we've covered. And they give you a Bitcoin address to send to, and you provide them with your Dash address. And as soon as you send Bitcoins to the address they give you, the Dash coin shows up at the address you gave them. And there's no login whatsoever, no information collected. They have no idea who anybody is. It's just like a little, that's why they call it Shapeshift. You send Bitcoins and it turns into Dash and you're on your way. But in New York, that's illegal because you're supposed to collect information about the people that are doing these things. Yeah. So fascinating. I mean, this is like, we're in a whole new world. We're in like the wild, wild west. This is like, you've got little, like kind of shrimpy little Bitcoin people going up against the state of New York, and they're in Panama so they don't get arrested or hassled. Anyway, I thought that. Yeah. Okay. And I just wanted to, this was also in the news this week. Canada is taking an opposite approach. They're taking a light touch, and they introduced a bill. I think it passed, and they did another cool thing. That I think they took a hash of the bill, which is basically like a fingerprint, and they published it on the blockchain. So basically, if they alter the bill in any way, then it changes the hash, and you can see that there's been some tampering. So kind of cool. Check out that story. I'll put the link in the show notes. But compare and contrast New York. You head like a couple hours north, get to Montreal, and you're all set with your Canadian regulation when you get there. Go Canada.
Just don't hold up a protest sign.
That's right.
Oh.
Yeah, because Bill C-52 is really bad.
Yes.
All right, so with that, I am going to turn it over to Stephen DeMillionaire to talk about the co-working currency project.
Go to the main site, Connectivize first.
You want to go to Connectivize first?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so
I'll be
I
your
got the
runaway.
site up. Let's see. Well, first I want to thank everyone who gave me a lot of feedback on the design of the site and for the transaction platform, actually. And we'll get to that just after this. But Gary, Rick, Deborah, JP, Stamen, Johnny, and a few other friends gave me their feedback on the platform, and there's still a few bugs about it. that I'm working out with the people who manage the platform. Basically, connectivize or connectivism is a concept in learning. So the idea is not really to be a currency in front, but actually to be a platform to encourage people to learn how to transition their lives, kind of like Turn Point, by collaborating with other people. And we facilitate that collaboration using 3 different currencies, and we'll probably add several more. But Bitcoin, Kapeng, which is well, Bitcoin 1-to-1, you know, there's equivalent. Kapeng is basically Indonesian rupiah equivalent. So 1 Kapeng or 1K is 1,000 rupiah, just like a K is in kilo. And hours of time as well too. So partly the system issues a currency through its administration, and that comes back through fees that are charged within the system. And in other cases, like hours of time, everyone receives a credit when they join. And for Bitcoin, you can deposit Bitcoin into the system and withdraw it. So if you don't have a Bitcoin wallet set up yet, you can go into the marketplace and offer your goods or services for Bitcoin, and then you can cash out later on, either by trading with someone else in the system who does have Bitcoin, or talking to the administration about cashing out your Bitcoin. The idea is to make that as seamless as possible and just make it possible for people to get involved with Bitcoin. So eventually, that's basically the idea of this platform. If you scroll down a bit, you'll see.
So these are currencies that co-working spaces and digital nomads can use to collaborate with one another. Is that
absolutely, and anywhere worldwide, transactions are immediate. We can add other currencies like Euro equivalent or USD equivalent, depending on how people charge them. But we're starting it here at Hubud, so we'll test it out here and then start expanding into other currencies later on as nomads start taking these ideas and pollinating other places with them.
Yeah,
but we can do that. So most currencies don't come with a philosophy, but we do think we want people to start understanding the implications of Bitcoin. Like often we talk about how great Bitcoin is and so on, but we often don't. We make assumptions about the philosophy of it, or we talk about libertarianism, but only a little bit. So I wanted to put up a few ideas about how the platform should work, so that people don't come in and free ride on it and make it an unfriendly place for people. We want this to be a place for collaboration. So if you just scroll down a little bit more, a quote from Bernard Leiter. The idea is that up until now, we've generally only thought about charging for our services in national currency. I mean, we call it fiat in these circles, but in the other circles, we call them just national currencies. The idea is to have different kinds of currencies that promote cooperation. And we do that mainly by not charging interest on the issuance of the currency, so that you're not compelled financially to earn money to repay the interest on that debt. Right? So it's simply by eliminating interest that we can neutralize the unlimited growth aspect of currencies.
Wow.
So when we do that, and if we do it on a large enough scale, we can actually we can help bring about ecological sustainability as well too in the money system, which is actually the first step that needs to be taken if we are actually going to be creating a sustainable society, is to have a stabilized monetary system.
Yeah.
Bernard Leiter's been here in Ubud. Maybe he'll come and visit us again.
Yeah.
So there, and then I just wanted to mention the key points, or I mentioned the key points there about transitioning to a Bitcoin economy and how we do that using this platform. So we want to encourage digital nomads to use this platform to get into Bitcoin. Like we've been trying here over the past year, and some people have gotten into it, but we really need a clear marketplace where people can offer their goods and services, so that we can really just encourage that more. And if they go off and just use this platform and only trade Bitcoin between each other, that's totally fine. Mm-hmm. So in your profile in this platform, you can put in your Bitcoin address so that people can just trade back and forth. But if you're trading in hours or Kapeng, it's nicer if you just use those ones, so that the system can generate some operating revenue as well too.
I often, one of the biggest questions I ever get is how do I get Bitcoin, right? And usually they're thinking they're going to buy some Bitcoin, like I'm going to trade my dollars or my rupiah for Bitcoin. But I always like to answer like, well, go find somebody that needs something and charge for your services in Bitcoin. Go earn it somehow. Mm-hmm. And it seems like this is a way that people could start to do that, no?
Yes, absolutely right. And then they can find other people who want to, enter the system and bring their Bitcoin in, and then they exchange back and forth if they want.
And it's especially compelling, I think, for digital nomads. I mean, I think it's going to happen more and more that people are traveling and working wherever they are and going to the next place. And if you have to change in and out of currencies constantly, or go from system to system doing that, well, it's just inefficient. And a central clearinghouse or a central currency like Bitcoin, or doing those kinds of trades in a fair way,
and it's
necessary.
If you assemble your team through this platform, if you find your copywriters and your filmmakers and your web devs and your graphic artists and so on, wherever you go in the world, you're going to want to be able to trade with them or exchange with them or pay them and those kinds of things. So that's when I expect that this will start to move around a lot more as people go off and form different teams. They can test their products in the marketplace. They can do crowdfunding or crowd investing. So it creates just a safe place. I don't know how it is in a lot of other countries, but in Indonesia, I think it's really risky to be putting job ads up on a Facebook page. And a lot of people are doing that now, and it's it just takes immigration. I mean, the immigration is thick in this town right now, and they're cracking down on all the live music establishments. They're making a lot of money in kickbacks from fining people from doing this. And those fines aren't going to the government; they're going to finance the officials next BMW. So it's really important for us to take it off of Facebook and put it in a place that has several layers of security behind it.
Well, the more I think that we can trade just peer to peer, just the more mechanisms that allow me to find that person that can do something for me, and vice versa, and we don't have to involve others.
In the future, this will probably be replaced by a peer-to-peer marketplace, but we're still a ways away from having the ability to do that.
Okay.
So do you want to look at the system briefly? I can just give you a little.
Yes.
Yeah, another thing too. Does it scroll down? That should turn into real numbers. Yeah. So the website will always show the system account balance. That's the administration account, or you could say the government's account in one way. So that's the balance there, and then because a deficit on the administration side creates the credit for the money supply, it's equivalent. The system gets gives itself 5 hours credit, and there's 6 other people who get 5 hours credit, so it's at 30 hours right now.
Can you say a little bit about, well, first of all, it's a mutual credit system, right? Or
yes.
You can say a little bit about that.
The Kapeng system is a mutual credit system, so this allows people to issue their own currency within the system, and they do that when they join the system. They receive a credit of 500 Kapeng, or 500,000 rupiah equivalent, maybe but $45 something, or 40 US at today's exchange rate. And the system is always balanced between the administration account and the group of users on the other side are holding up that balance, and also between all of the users. So other than the initial creation of currency that moves it from the administration to you, all transactions are just positives and negatives between everyone in the system. So It's always balanced at 0 between the Kapeng balance and the Kapeng money supply. Will always balance out at 0. And same for the hours as well too.
Can you say a little bit about the time bank? I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with the concept of the time bank, but the currency is the actual hours.
Yeah, hours and minutes actually. You can like an hour and 15 minutes. You could record a transaction.
So I could extend as credit like 5 hours of my time.
Yes.
Yeah. And then.
And your hour is worth exactly the same as anyone else's hours. No one can charge 2. Like my time's worth 2 hours, compared to your 1.
Okay.
is just straight hour for hour. Whether
That
you're-
is true, but I'm glad the system enforces that it's 1-to-1.
Yeah, well, it can be reported. I mean, you can't really,
Is there a review system? So like if you guys trade equal hours and like one of you guys does a great job, the other one does a crap job.
every transaction can be reviewed and given feedback on. But hopefully it's all good.
It's fascinating. It's like the great equalizer. Like all of us have the same number of hours in a day, and it's an interesting concept to think of that as the currency. Like the currency is my time.
Yeah. So, well, if you're just learning something, like you've just learned a programming skill, or you're teaching someone, of your own time, that you don't need to, and then you don't need to charge them Bitcoin or Kapeng for it. Just offer your time.
Right. And you can pick up the skill, and they can benefit by.
Yeah.
And then you can get traded for a massage, from somebody else.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a direct exchange, right, Stephen? It doesn't have to, one person gives and then they have to take the time back from the same person. They don't.
Nope, they don't have to. It's three-way. You get a credit for it, and you can spend it with someone else.
Right.
So it's not straight barter.
So I can buy an hour of cryptocurrency consulting from Rick, and then somehow get a massage from JP.
Yuda.
From Yuda. Okay.
That's right.
Cool.
Yeah, but
This might be too complicated, but I'm an accountant by trade, and it took me so much university, post-grad, 10 years experience. So what I can do in an hour, from an accounting standpoint, compared to someone that has just finished high school,
yeah.
is completely different. So, but this is bringing that back to my hours the same as their hour, and it doesn't kind of take into account all the skills that I've built up to that point in time.
Right. So in that case, I would charge for it in Bitcoin instead, and not use hours. Just choose a different one. And,
Although
You set your own pricing.
If you needed something very specialized, then you could in fact trade your hour of accounting for somebody's hour fixing your electricity, and it may be commensurate. So that's up to the individual.
But then you're back to
yes,
1-to-1.
you tell which currencies you're willing to accept.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to use hours or Kapeng or Bitcoin. You can choose one of the three, or two of the three if you wanted to, or all three. If you felt like.
But you make a good point, Blair. I think that in other systems where time banks have been implemented, like the doctor gets overrun and the masseuse is sitting there not, with an excess of hours.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's important too. If people have to learn how to spend them as well.
Right.
Yeah. It's easy to earn sometimes in these systems, but making the effort to spend them is important too.
And there's a real social aspect to getting this kind of thing to work.
Yeah. And that's where the platform comes in. So maybe I should log in.
Okay.
Well, I just have some things about digital entrepreneurs.
So you just need
If we
another
just slide up.
And Stephen, can you say something about the zeroing as well in terms of the hours? I think that would be
This one?
cool to hear.
Yeah. Can I use this one? Oops.
You can
Sign in. Just
Sign in?
sign in at the top
Okay.
right there. I think that's. Get to see my login.
I'm gonna go spend your Kapeng as soon as you leave.
Yeah. So actually, I'll talk about Ciclos first. Ciclos is an organization. Well, it's the social trade organization built Ciclos using EU funding. It's used in a lot of small and medium banks in South America and Africa. So it's bank level security. Bank Mandiri here in Indonesia uses it for their mobile banking platform, or their eCash platform, although it's modified a lot from this. So when you log in, this is just my own personal account, not the system account. And so you see on the left side there, I don't have any Kapeng yet, and I don't have any Bitcoin in yet, but I do have, I have a balance of 0 hours, but I have a credit of 5 available that I can spend. That's how the mutual credit system works. So you get the balance is at 0. I have a credit of 5. So when I spend, say, 1 hour with JP, my balance will go -1, and her balance will go +1. And when she spends it with Gary, her balance will go to 0, and Gary's balance will go to +1. So the system is always going back and forth with a balance of 0 between the members. So as new currencies are added, they'll be lined up on the left-hand side. And so if you go to, I think place add. Sorry, no. Let me see here. Marketplace, maybe on the top navigation bar. Yeah. There we go. So we've got some of we can.
Oh, Johnny. Good to
see.
Yeah, that's priceless.
That
That is priceless.
It's priceless.
So
And bamboo
you can
bullets,
get
yay.
you can get a customized wrap. Yeah, you can do some filmmake stuff.
Chinta
SEO
Bahasa,
analysis,
language classes.
Indonesian language classes. Oh no, that's not actually. That's the Bitcoin public address. I've still got to get the Chinta. Oh yeah, we do. Chinta Bahasa, our classes with Chinta Bahasa are available.
Ask me
in
anything.
Bitcoin.
Ask me.
That was me. An hour of time. You can just sit down with a Canadian and over a beer and ask me anything for an hour. It's just like South Park style, right?
You got me with the South Park.
So that's cool. So you know, somebody shows up at a co-working space and they're a designer, and they've got immediately they have a 5-hour credit on the system, so they can go find a web developer or maybe buy a coffee at Hubud or something.
Yeah.
I don't know, like basically plug into the economy and then offer her own services here and get paid in hours or Kapang or Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's interesting. Yeah. So.
And then they roll this out in another co-working space and just keep on trucking.
Yeah, and everyone here at Hubud will be able to connect with any other co-working space, so they will see the advertisements for the other co-working spaces as well. But they will have a different set of accounts for being able to trade into other systems. So the system that we have here for Ubud stays balanced within Ubud. But if you want to extend that to other areas, then you'll have other accounts. So what we're going to be getting used to with this is having many, many different currencies to choose from and earn in as we expand geographically, which is important.
Yeah, it's a neat idea.
So it's kind of like having a bank account where you can take your money and put it in different forms of currency within the same account.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So similar.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Is there some kind of a way to make sure that people don't hoard, just stack up?
Yeah, that's what our fee, fee for the platform. There are no transaction fees or monthly fees like a typical bank. You know, where you're kind of discouraged from making transactions because of the fee. But what we do is the platform charges demurrage, which is a charge on positive balances. And so if your balance is at 0 or negative, there's no charge. If you open an account and you don't use it, you're not going to open it up in a year and find that you're now owing thousands of dollars in fees. But if you're making use of the system and you're earning from it and it's benefiting you and you're not paying out, then you'll be charged a percentage fee on that per month. Yeah. And that encourages you. Yeah, it encourages you to spend it and find people to spend it with rather than have the value go away. Or you can use it for crowdfunding or something like that. Like if you know that you're not going to be traveling for the next 6 months, but in the previous 6 months you earned a lot of money, then maybe you can invest in other people's projects, something like that. You know, like contribute, say, 20 hours to someone who's doing something interesting and work it out between you what the return is later on. So that they can find people that they need.
If I earn a bunch and then like I don't want anything that's on there and I cash out in Bitcoin, I'm gonna get charged demurrage.
There's no demurrage on Bitcoin, but you'd get a fee. You'd pay a fee if you cashed out from the internal system in Bitcoin to real Bitcoin, possibly, unless if you did it through the administration. But if Gary was willing to buy your hours or your Kapang from you using Bitcoin, then you work it out between yourselves.
So yeah,
but if you leave your hours or if you've earned hours or Kapang in your account, you have a positive balance, then it will start to wear away. Yeah, rust. Well, we're not exactly sure yet, but say possibly 4% per month, because the issuance of the system also needs to recover the currency that it's issued as well. So every 2 years, there would be a cycling of the money supply.
But they've done this successfully in some places, right? There's a bit of a recipe for what these percentages should be and what normal people will accept in terms of demurrage. And
But that varies greatly with the purpose of the system. So my friends or advisors have given me a wide variety of different ideas to choose from. So, but I think I'm pretty much settled on these fees, but not 100%.
Okay.
I mean, it's the reality of people using the system and either complaining about it or saying, oh no, this is good, or making great use of it, or feeling that the system's holding them back. That's where you have to, like with any economic system, that's where you decide, how the policy should change.
Very cool. All right. Well, we will be watching this with interest.
Yes.
Steven.
And the platform's open. It's at connectivize.net, and you can get more information there on the details. At the bottom, go to the very bottom. Actually, I wanted people to read through it first, and then you can. That will take you to another page, which is not really finished yet.
Oh, this one.
Yeah.
But is this so? Yeah. Take a look at collectivize.net or connectivize.
Yeah, not
Connectivize.net, and we'll be watching with interest and see how this thing develops. Good stuff, guys. All right. Well, that's all the time we have for tonight, folks. Don't forget, we do this every Tuesday night at 6 o'clock. And in the meantime, we are on Bitcoins in Bali Facebook group. So find something interesting, post it to the group. And then when we get together next Tuesday, we'll talk about it. And, right now we're going to head over to Seeds of Life for dinner. Anyone who wants to join, we should be there in the next 15 or 20 minutes. And thanks for coming. Bye, guys.
Hey.
Yes, Christine.